Okay, let's wait. Okay, so at the top of Hammer base, the Mishnah, Zorkas Evan, Rishus Rabin, Barak. You toss the Evan to Rishus Rabin. You toss the stone randomly into a public domain and it killed a razor goyla. So you go into Golos. Oh, wait, did we do this in the wrong place? I think the wrong place. Yes, we're up to, hey, sorry, top of Vav and Ralph. Halacha, hey. Of Golai de Beno, Rabbi Venai of father who hits his son and kills him with Shoigeg. The Moshe says, Shaloi ko lulamdo Torah Musa umnus. He's doing teach him Torah, Musa, or even a craft, so he's exempt. That's what we saw in the previous Mishnah. But he did for some other reason, and he killed him with Shoigeg, so goes and goes. But Benedei of, the same thing with a child kills a father by accident. Everybody goes to goes. Oh, did we do this too? Yes, we did this also. Sorry, we came mixed up here. It's up to February 25th. That was last week. Halach above. Okay. Leichel go. Where are you going to go? Or Miklat. To the Yari Miklat. L'sholosh Eber Yarden, L'sholosh Eretz Canaan. The three in Eber Yarden and three in Eretz Canaan. Shemar Veshlosh Arim Tinu Me'ever Yarden. There are three cities on one side of the Jordan River on the east bank, and the three cities on the west bank of the Jordan River. Before the three in Eretz Yisrael were chosen, the three in Eber Yarden didn't work either. Shneimar says, there have to be six are functioning all as units. There are roads which went from one to the other. You prepare the derech, you prepare the highways, and you divide the land in three. In other words, that there be equal distant parts. It's really four. We divide the land so there's equal distant parts between each of the cities and the also with to the boundary. Most of the Shnei Talmidei Chachamim, and we give two Talmidei Chachamim to the person who's running away from the Goel Adam, and lest he kill him on the road. That's not what to happen. That's what Talmidei Chachamim do. They speak to him, right? They try and persuade the Goel Adam, let him go. It's true you aren't allowed to kill him. The Goel Adam is allowed to kill him as long as Basin has already judged him, right? He was brought back, judged in court, found to be Chayav Golus. So now the Goel Adam can kill him on the way to Yer Miklat. So the Talmidei Chachamim is there to try and persuade him not to kill him. Meir says he can also try and stick up for himself. This is the word of the Rotzech, meaning that the Rotzech himself can speak up. Yes, we the Meir B'tchila Echad So initially, any type of killer goes to Yer Miklat. Doesn't matter whether they're shogeg or mezid. Based on being Misham, and then based in sends to bring him from there. Mishan is Chayv Misa or Gu. Somebody is liable to be put to death, he's put to death. Shal is Chayv Misa, somebody is not liable to be put to death, but true, they exempted it. Mishan is Chayv goes, somebody is Chayv goes, Magazino, so they put him back into the Yer Miklat. Shemar Bishibo Soida, El Yer Miklato. You should go back to the Yer Miklat. Echad Masho B'Shem Mishra, period. Echad Masho B'Shem Mishra, Be'echad B'Ru B'Gadim, Echad Jorm Shichuso. Who, the death of Kohen Gadol lets the Rotzeach go free back to the city. It doesn't matter which Kohen Gadol. There are several possibilities. What in the time first place in Mikdash, they anointed Kohen Gadol by the Shemen HaMishcha. They still had the oil, which was learned this past week's Parashah, Kisisa, and Moshe Rabbeinu made to anoint the people and Kalim. In time the second base in Mikdash, the time of Yoshio, the king Yoshio, who put it into Geniza, who put it away, they didn't have that anymore. So there's the quantum after the Shemen HaMishcha was put into Geniza are called Merubah V'Gadim. Well, it makes them more quantum. The only fact that they have 8 garments instead of 4 garments. So Echem Mashul Shem Mishcha Echem Merubah V'Gadim Echem Shem Mishikuso. And Kohen Gadol, who's a Kohen Gadol emeritus. He served as Kohen Gadol, but he's no longer Kohen Gadol. Remember, Mashuach Milchama. Mashuach Milchama is an interesting phenomenon. Mashuach Milchama is a Kohen who was appointed to go into battle with the nation, kind of like the head chaplain of the army. And he also wears the 8 begadim when he goes out to the battlefield, even though he's not really a Kohen Gadol. But he also uh, um, his death, Queen Abuda, also allows the Rotzeach to come back. So if you're therefore, the mothers of the Kohanim would give the murderers sustenance and clothing. They should shemusu, so they shouldn't doubt about their that their children should die, because every Rotzeach again has a vested interest in the Kohen Gadol dying, so we can go home. So therefore, the mothers of the Kohanim would try and ply them with gifts, so they wouldn't actually daven for their kids to die. If the din is paskin that this guy is Mechuyev Golos, and the Kohen Gadol dies after Gemara din, he doesn't have to even go into Golos. The Kohen Gadol exempts going to Golos. But in Shenigmar at Shalonim Madino Meis Kohen Gadol, the Kohen Gadol died before Gemara din, before they pronounced judgment. And they appointed another Kohen, and then his judgment is pronounced. He goes back when the second one dies. Nigmar below Kohen Gadol, at the time of his Gmar there was no Kohen Gadol in office. Or Hore Kohen Gadol, killed the Kohen Gadol. Or Kohen Gadol himself was killed. And he lets him be stuck there forever. He doesn't go out to testify for a mitzvah. In other words, let's say somebody's husband died and he wanted to be mati her to get married, so he doesn't go out to testify for that. They just mom and they go to testify in a court in a monetary case. There's the pashas nor to save somebody's life or testify against somebody who's committed a capital crime. And this the next line is an amazing line. Even the Jews need him. Even if he's the general of the Israeli army. Yoav ben Tzruya, like Yoav the son of Tzruya, who was the leader of the army at the time of David HaMelech, he never leaves. Shama says, Shama, there. Sham tehei k'dirasa, v'sham tehei midasa, v'sham tehei k'vurasa. So on the side it says, but Tosefta, Perek Beis, Dorsha, v'nichsiv shosh pamim Shama. It says it Shama 3 times. So 3 times Shama means there he lives, there he dies, and there he's buried. Now, personally, I think that if he was the general and he was the only person who could wage war against the enemies, so they'd find some way to do it. They'd find some way to get some loophole to get him out of the Miklat, or at least to have him in charge of the armies in some way, shape, or form. But technically speaking, strictly speaking, even for the purpose of saving Klal Yisrael, he's considered to be a walking dead. He's a zombie. He's no longer considered to be alive, and there unless Kohen Gadol dies, in which case he has like a Tchias HaMesim, and therefore he can't be required, and he's advised not to leave the Ir Miklat because the Gadol can kill him under any circumstances. Okay, Kashem She'ir Kolet. That's just like the city absorbs the person who killed. Kach Tchuma Kolet. The Tchum, which is the 2,000 amos around the city, also is part of the Ir Miklat, and once he reaches the 2,000 amos, the Tchum of the city, he is already considered to be inside the city. Rotzeach a Rotzeach who went outside of the Tchum, outside 2,000 amos of the city. And the Gol Adam found him. Rabbi Yosef Glili says, Mitzvah ya Gol Adam. Well, it's a mitzvah to Gol Adam to kill him. Or should play out on him. It's optional. In other words, nobody puts him to death. Nobody kills him. It's Chayv Misa. He's like a Gavra Ktila. He's like a dead person, like I said, a zombie, a dead person walking. But for the Gol Adam, it's a mitzvah to kill him. For anybody else, it's optional. They don't have to kill him. Rabbi Kiva said no. Kushus be a Gol Adam. A Gol Adam has the option. It's not a mitzvah chiyuv. It's not a mandatory mitzvah. He is given permission by Hashem to kill him. And everybody else, they should not kill him. But if they kill him, since he's a Gavra Ktila, since his status is that he's a dead man walking, so therefore they're not put to death if they kill him. It's a halacha also by if you kill somebody who's a treifa, kill somebody who has a mortal wound from which they were going to die, because they would die within the next 12 months. So then, under those circumstances, the person who kills him is not put to death. He's putter because since he's a treifa, he would die anyway in the next 12 months. Instead of be a dead man walking, therefore somebody kills him, it's not Chayav Misa. So here somebody kills the Rotzeh B'Shogeg, even though we prefer he doesn't kill him. but he doesn't agree that person cannot be put to death. That's what Rabbi Akiva was saying. Okay. Elon Shomei b'toch hatchum. You have a tree which is in the tchum of the Ir Miklat. V'nofa notel toch hatchum, and its foliage. The top of the tree was outside the tchum. Hakolech achar hanof. So according to this Mishnah, everything follows the foliage. The foliage is inside the tchum, then when he's in the foliage of the tree, he is out of range of the Goel Adam. The foliage is outside the tchum, if he's in the foliage of the tree, then he is subject to the Goel Adam killing him. Hard by Sayir, let's say he kills again b'shogeg. He's in the Ir Miklat. He kills again. Goel Mishchin L'shkun, he has to go from neighborhood to neighborhood. Uven Levi, if a Ben Levi kills, and the Ir Miklat were the property of the Levim. So what does he do? He's supposed to go le'ir. He goes from one city to another city. Kayotzibo, similarly, Rotzeh should go Ir Miklato. The question is what the Kayotzibo means. It seems to be not doesn't follow what we just said. The Kayotzi and what? So, but in any event, it means if they want to make an exception, Rotzeh should go Ir Miklato Miklat. They want to give him covered. He should say to them, just like before, he's not supposed to get any special consideration. He should say to them, I'm a murderer. So I shouldn't get any special consideration from you. If they say, nevertheless, we want to give you covered anyway, man, then he can accept it. All he has to, again, so I said before, the Rotzeach can speak for himself. He has to say, I'm a Rotzeach. He has to say, I'm not worthy of it. And if they want to give him covered anyway, then he's allowed to accept it. It's very similar to like we had earlier in Masechta by Shemitah, right? By Shemitah's Ksafim. So the person who's owed the money has to say, Mishamet Ani, to say, I'm willing to relinquish the loan. If the borrower then says, nevertheless, I want to pay you, so he's allowed to accept it. But he has to make the statement that he must loan because of Shemitah. Okay, so Shalosh Ayar says Shalosh Yosifis Moshe every Yardi. Moshe set aside 3 cities in the Avery Yardi, in the east bank of the Jordan River. And they came there. So he freeshu owed Shalosh. They set aside another 3. Kotos, neither of them were functional. Neither the 3 on the west bank, nor neither 3 on the east bank, nor 3 on the west bank. Until they conquered Eretz Yisrael, which took 7 years, and divided up Eretz Yisrael, which took another 7 years. Once they conquered Eretz Yisrael and divided up Eretz Yisrael, before that there wasn't a Chiv Shemitah or Yovel either, because Eretz Yisrael had to be completely conquered and settled, and so there wasn't a Chiv Shemitah or Yovel until after those 14 years either. So. So once they conquered and they distributed, so the land became and then those both sets of cities, the East Bank and the West Bank, were both collate. They were both function. So the main motion brings out brings out a length of Tosefta. Tosefta Reish base. Actually, Tosu. It's a mistake here. He says, is this going later on? No, it's going later on. I'm sorry. Apologize. So you may watch it later on. It's later on. Okay, so in the meantime, let's go further. The 3 cities they set aside Eretz Yisrael, they were opposite, parallel. The 3 cities that Moshe set aside in Avery Yarden. The state shores are like 2 rows in a vineyard where you have 2 sets of vines. The halacha is a vineyard has to have at least 5 trees, but they have to be arranged as if they're 6. So 2 rows, 3 and 2. So one of them can be missing. The 6th one is missing. You only need 5, but you need to have to be in 2 corresponding rows. And here it's the same thing. Only here we do need the 6th one. It's not enough to just have it spot. So we have 3 on one side, and corresponding them 3 on the other side. That makes like a vineyard. It makes a mikla. As Chevron Yehuda corresponding to the Betzar Bibor. It's opposite. Betzar in the Chevron is on the west bank of the Jordan River. Betzar is in the east bank of the Jordan River. Beshchem Bar Ephraim That is again on the West Bank Jordan River. Kenega Ramos Gilad corresponds to Ramos in Gilad. As Kedesh Galileo, Kenega Golan Bashon corresponds to Golan in the Bashan. Actually, if you should Shechem by Ephraim, until they set aside Shechem, which is in Ephraim in the West Bank, then the other it wasn't yet collate, it wasn't yet absorbing Rotzim. He free so instead, until they were able to conquer Shechem, if you should get Yorim to the Dachter, she keeps Shechem. They set aside Kiryas Yorim as a temporary air mikla until they conquered Shechem. Actually, if you should Kedesh Bagali Loiso Koletis, until they were set aside Kedesh in the Goli, which evidently came later, then it wasn't able to absorb. If you should Gamla Tachtel, then did I read this one? So actually, if you should Shechem in our flame Loiso Koletis, you should Kiryas Yorim to actually keep Shechem. Actually, if you should Kedesh Bagali, so that's if you should Gamla Tachtel, actually keep Kedesh. Okay, right. So now. And this, the Pnei Moshe is going. The Pnei Moshe is going in this, and he says on this thing, he says, actually, if you should believe Tosi, it's wrong. Sharei, loyal cultus, actually, if you should kulon. What do you mean? Smash me here that until they were Mafi Shem, so it wasn't Kolib. Once they matched, until they conquered Shem, it wasn't Kolib. Once they conquered Shem, it was Kolib, but that's not true. Until they conquered Kedesh, further north, Shem wasn't Kolib either, because it all had to be conquered at once. They all had to be together. They all activated simultaneously. They couldn't activate one instead before the other ones, right? So this is what the Sefer says. Even though Shechem and Ephraim was set aside, it was did not absorb, even though it was already designated. So therefore, since Shechem was not effective, it was not effective until all 6 cities were set aside. So as a stopgap measure, actually keeps they set aside Kiryas Yorim as a temporary measure. Kiryas Yorim is, by the way, according to our understanding, is roughly, I don't know if it's meaningful to you, but where Telstone is today, which is much further south. It's near Yerushalmi, so Shechem, which is further north. So the way they conquered is they came in like kind of opposite Yerushalmi, and they started going northwards. So Shechem was only conquered after they conquered Yerushalayim and its surrounding areas, including Kiryas Yorim. So until Shechem was conquered, so they needed a stopgap measure. If there was a attack with Shechem, he went to Kiryas Yorim. And also similarly, even though they said it's like Geresh Golil, Loiso Koletis, it still couldn't absorb because they have all 6 yet. They said it's like Gamgamla said Kaddish until they conquered Kaddish. So evidently, the way this understands it, they first designated the cities. Then they said, okay, when we conquer them, they'll be activated. They conquer all 6. In the meantime, even if they designated the cities, until they conquered them, they had to have some other city instead as the temporary measure. So the temporary measure for Shechem was Kiryas Yorim, and the temporary measure for Kaddish was Gamla. Okay, Gamla, by the way, is in the east bank of the Jordan River. So it was conquered at the time of Yetzias Mitzrayim. Last year, they were in the desert. So before Kaddish in the Galil on the west bank of the Jordan River was able to be activated together with the rest of the cities, they took an additional city on the east bank of the Jordan, Gamla, and said, in the meantime, that should be the temporary year mikvah. Okay, so the Achashifisha Shar Kotos, after they set it aside, the other ones absorb so now the game motion gets even more complicated. Again, he's saying this to Tosefta, so I assume it's Tosefta saying it. He says, you know what? Really, once they were mafresh, all 6, once they designated all 6, they were all activated. But in practice, the city which was designated but wasn't yet conquered couldn't serve as an mikvah. It's like a problem because there's still Canaanim living there. So he's saying, once they're all designated, they're all huflash. So then they could all start working. They all could be activated. But in Prague, there was a problem, a practical problem. Practical problem is that it's true you designated them, and you activated them, but murder can't go, it's still owned by the Canaanim. So until they actually conquer them, says the main motion in the name of Tosefta, they use those other temporary cities even after they're already set aside, designated, and activated, but not yet conquered. Okay, let's go back to the Gemara now. Ushloshes. There are three Shi'ar Mikvah. So, in other words, Hashem says to Moshe Rabbeinu, you set aside three, set aside another three, and go to Eretz Yisrael. So, or have them set aside another three. Shloshes, Shumashulashos. There should be equidistant. There should be from Hebron to the southern boundary of Yehuda, because Hebron is the southernmost city. There should be from the southernmost boundary to Shechem, to Hebron, sorry, the same distance as me, like between Hebron and Shechem. If Hebron and Shechem could be the same distance, like can be Shechem to Kedesh. Okay, so it's the same distance. Again, from the boundary to the first one, from the center to the second one, and so on and so forth. Okay, in the Bavli, I don't think here. And the Bavli actually asks, wait a minute, that's still not equal. Because from Yehuda, from the boundary in the south, the Hebron, let's say, is 20 miles, hypothetically, right? And then you're saying from Hebron to Shechem is 20 miles. Yeah, but then a guy who's running from the south, from the boundary in the south, has to go 20 miles before it's your mikvah. But the guy is between Hebron and Shechem, he only has to run 10 miles. He can choose either direction, go 10 miles. So I think Bavli, if I recall correctly, says they're actually distributed in a way that it was equidistant distances. Though I'm not sure exactly how it works because my mathematics is faulty. But the distance you have to run from the boundary to Yehuda, it was 15 miles, right? For the boundary of Yehuda to Hebron would be 50 miles, and then there was 30 miles between Hebron and Shechem. So then, of course, it was 15 miles in each direction. So they made sure that it was equidistant from the boundaries and from the midway points between the cities. In order, everybody should have to run the exact same distance in order to get to near me. Yerushalmi doesn't bring it up. I think that's in the Bible. So one of these cities falls down, it's destroyed, it's conquered by an enemy. Bonim Osame Osa Shavit. The Shavit in which was located has to build it, which seems not fair, because the Ari Mikla were owned by Levium, not by the Shvat in which they were located. But nevertheless, I guess it was good for business to have an Ir Mikla. So therefore, it's good for business to have an Ir Mikla, so therefore they were required to rebuild them. I guess also we couldn't require Levium to build it because Levium, they didn't have that much money. They would have limited resources. So therefore, we had to require the Shavit, which was located, to rebuild it. So even though Hebron was owned by Levium, if it fell, it had to be reconstructed by Shavit Yehuda. I don't think that's in the Bavli. It's just in the Yerushalmi. So you said Shvatim. How do we know that this is true? Not just about it's about the other Shvatim as well. I forgot what that means. Yeah, so that's why the reason I forgot what it means, because it doesn't really make sense, because the Bnei Moshe changes the Girsa. When Bnei Moshe changes and says, how do we know? So even somewhere else doesn't have to be specifically in that place. Talmud Omar Sheishorim, also Shavit. And 6 cities, okay, but at least it's have to be in that Shavit. When I can even go to a different Shavit. Tamar Tier. Does it says should be chobaras and causes they have to be the same distances, but they don't have to be the same Shavit. So according to Bnei Moshe's Girsa, which he says from the Tosefta, so really, if that Shavit wants to rebuild it, I guess it gets first dibs. But if you can't rebuild that, if that Shavit's not willing to rebuild it, or you can't rebuild it there, so then another Shavit can come and build it as well. The main thing is that the distances, the equal distance, should be preserved in order that they should function properly. But anytime it can be, have it relocated, you'll relocate it to the area of a different Shavit. And to the best of my knowledge, never happened, but theoretically, that would be the case. Okay. So Um, the um, going back a minute, I was looking outside my Gemara. The way the Pnei Moshe learns the sugya, he actually wants to make the Bavli and Yerushalmi reconciled. He says over here, they should make Chevel Lidor. No, that actually doesn't make difference. That's just a no. Never mind. Never mind. That really doesn't make a difference. Okay. Okay. Uh, uh, the Tishu Mechobanos. Okay. So she says she Mechobanos concepts are trying to say no matter where you put them, even if it came was another shape, as long as it's the same equidistance, you're okay. Harim Alolu, these cities. Ain't Bonim Masam Lo Krachim Gedolim. You can't make them large metropolises. You don't make them big cities. The presumption is that's dangerous. And this is in Bavli as well. If you make them too big, so then the Goel Hadam could sneak in. There's so many people going in and out. You can't make sure the Goel Hadam doesn't sneak in. So therefore, you can't make them big city. You have to make them regular size. Okay, local also can't make it a small city, because you make it a small city, then there's not enough commercial activity there, and the people in Golos won't be able to support themselves. There has to be a sufficient commercial activity for them to be able to make a living. So you don't make a large city, a metropolis, nor a small town. It'll be 9 years, medium-sized cities. And as a result, you only build them where there's a marketplace, because you need to have a marketplace in order for people to do commercial activity, to make a living, right? There's no marketplace. Also, you make a marketplace there. You only build them on water. In other words, so the Rotseach doesn't have to leave the city to get water. There's not enough water in the city. He goes out to get water, and he's in trouble. They'll go down and find him. So after him, ain't shamayim, there's no water in the city. You bring water into the city. You have to build an aqueduct to bring the water into the city. The Nismatsu Urayan, if the amount of people who live there have become diminished, so then you have to bring other people. In other words, you have to keep up the population. You don't keep up the population, so then it's not going to work out properly. If you don't have a population there, now the way Moshe explains that is, no city can exist on its own. It has to have customers and merchants and people coming in, clients from elsewhere. So if there's nobody around it, so he says it's not just for commercial reasons. It says they're like a buffer. You have populations in surrounding cities, so then the Goel Hadam, they have to get past a couple of checkpoints. They have to get past a couple of checkpoints, so then it'll slow them down and impede them from coming. Okay, so if ancient they can bring Kohen and to live around there in order to kind of like impede the Goel Hadam from getting there. You can learn the Gemara not like emotion, learn very simply. It says, if there aren't enough people, they bring other people. Okay, man, so listen, isn't another population nearby to supply a city? Because remember, each one's from its own Shevet. So let's say this one is in Shevet Ephraim, and there are not enough people in Ephraim there, because I don't know, Ephraim went to the Golos, whatever, they're not there. So then, you bring any type of people in order to populate the city. Even though the city itself is supposed to be Levine, and Air Levine, and the surrounding areas are supposed to be the areas that Shevet. But it's more important to make sure the city maintains its size. So therefore, if you have to bring Kohen Lusanim from elsewhere, she'll bring them from elsewhere. Okay. And also, we're talking about base of bad. You don't make olive presses in them. The low base of tira nor wine presses. Because again, that makes it too big a commercial actor. But he holds too big a commercial center is not good either. But you have to have a shuk, you have to have a marketplace, you have to be able to do commercial activity, but not to make it a place where people come to press their olives and press their grapes. Because then the too many people coming in, the Goel Hadam can sneak in. I'm going to argue. Chachamim say it's okay. Why? Because evidently, it's necessary. Like the name Moshe says, Nation Mechai Nefesh. It's important that they be able to support themselves. Okay. I'm not sure we'll be able to finish the next sentence, but let's try. You don't make ropes in Miklat because ropes can be used for all sorts of bad purposes. Okay, so that industry you don't do in Miklat. And also you don't make glass there. And evidently the glass is shalo bishula hargil shah esarego. So he says that this is the Yerushalmi Makkos everyone yerog you go down what's the sham so he doesn't say the ropes are because of nefarious purpose. I think he says the glass and ropes for the same reason, in order that there shouldn't be so many people there. But the Moshe points out that Chachamim don't argue on this. But I think that just like ropes can be used for nefarious purposes, so do glassware. You'll break a glass and use it for a weapon. Okay, that's we're about to run out of time, so we'll stop here for tonight. Let's see you all tomorrow. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Sweet.